Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
What's going on, everybody? This is Critical Failure. It's Friday night. I gotta get this done. I usually have... Okay, so my kids stayed up 3 hours past their bedtime. I couldn't get them to go to sleep tonight, so I have literally no time to record. Thankfully, I got a ton of Vancast. I think we can save this show. I didn't have time to get chiptunes, get another Starship Amazing album, because I've been enjoying working through their career, so to speak. So I'll just have to go with what I have handy, which is a copy of... you know what? Actually, let me check my... my music folder. I think I might have something else here. Yeah, let's go back to Scoops the Robot. We're going to play a track off of Scoops the Robot, and then we will go to the Vancast, where I have some stuff about the Steam Summer Sale. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio, episode 191.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lovely evening planned.
Tiger Claw Radio. That was Starship Amazing. That's the lead-off track to Gerhard Deckround. Yeah, I was going to do Scoops the Robot, wasn't I? Oh well, I have Scoops the Robot open. We'll do a track from that later on in the evening. Let's cut right to the Vancast, guys.
It is Monday morning. You were listening to the Vancast, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy, 6:28, bright and early. Getting ready to drive to work. Steam summer sales. Alright, so this morning I was able to run the new Doom for the first time. I didn't really get to dig into it per se, but I got to fire it up, take a look at how it would play out. I mean, you know, on my hardware and just see what it looked like. So the loading times were atrocious, which is, I guess, to be expected given that I have like an entry-level gaming PC. But there was really a moment where I feel like my computer pulled me aside and was like, hey, look, all right, I'll run this for you, but I want you to understand something. This is a 750 Ti you're playing on. It ain't going to be like you see on the Let's Plays. So I was like, all right. So I loaded up what I assume was some sort of horde mode because I didn't want to take time to go through the story. I just wanted to see what it would look like as it ran. I had to tinker with the graphics settings, and let me just say, when I was done and I was finished with everything, it was playable and it looked beautiful to me. It really did. But this was the first time. Was it the first time? Yeah, this was the first time I really had to turn everything down in a game. I had to turn everything down, man. 750 Ti can run that game, but not very well. But it ran, and it looks great. It's the new Doom game. I mean, people were talking about this game for a reason. It felt like, it felt like a return to form. Just for the short period of time I was running through the course that I kind of selected randomly, just feeling out the starter weapons, blasting at a couple of enemies. I'm really excited to dig into it. It's a good-looking game. I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. And eventually, I'll upgrade my graphics card and it'll look a little better. I think the time for the graphics card update is... I don't know. I kind of felt... I was kind of thinking about it with Street Fighter V when that had some performance issues. Now I'm thinking about it a little more. We'll see. But more on that later. So I played a little bit of Doom. What else did I get? I got a bunch of games. But the ones that I've played, I played D, the game, which was a... how do I explain that game? I'm hoping you guys know what I'm talking about. It was a Sega Saturn game, a first-person horror game, but it was very early horror computer game, or horror, not computer game, horror video game. I mean, it came out in the PlayStation / Dreamcast era, or excuse me, not Dreamcast, Sega Saturn era. I don't think it ever came out for the PlayStation. I think it was pretty much just on the Saturn. And I knew this game. A friend of mine had a Saturn, and we got to try it at his house, my brother and I, once. And it didn't really jive with us at the time. But I knew it primarily from the HVGN's Core series of videos back in like 2010, 2011. He did like a fanatic video about it when he was like making it cool to be excited about old games. So that got me into the idea of trying it. I picked it up for like $1.25, which is, I'm certainly willing to risk that on a game. I will just put the period there at the end of that sentence. Certainly willing to risk that on a game, especially like a game that I had heard such nice things about, so long ago. And I gave it a try, and atmosphere-wise, I really dug it. Puzzle-wise, not too hard at all. But I'll tell you what, walking around in a first-person game has never been so cumbersome. To try and put it in some context, I think around 1993 or 1994, like the top computer game was Myst, which was in many ways a lot like this game, in that it was a first-person set game that primarily focused on puzzles. But the thing about Myst, as anybody who played it will tell you, it was not free-flowing at all. It was essentially a slideshow, and you would click around on the environment and it would advance to the next still image to indicate that you've moved forward. So playing this game D, I have to think to these guys, it was cutting edge to create a first-person adventure game, a first-person, puzzle adventure game, where when you clicked on something or pressed an arrow key, there was an animation where you could see the environment move, and that's how it indicated that you moved forward. Because that happens in this game, but the time it takes when you press forward once to move to the next space, it's so slow. Oh my gosh, it's so slow. Hang on a second. Am I saying it's a bad game? Absolutely not. I got into it. I got to a puzzle that I couldn't figure out, and I stuck with it for a while, and I was exploring all around, and I dug it. I reached that point where I bought into the environment, and I really bought into the game, to what they were selling. I played it for probably about an hour. I seem to remember hearing that game is supposed to be finished in like 2 hours or something. So to sit down and play that game for an hour, I think is probably about normal. But there's no way to save. You're kind of expected to finish it in one shot. So when you sit down and play it and don't finish it, essentially what you're doing is just collecting the knowledge to speed run it. So you go back to it after trying it previously, and you can then speed run to where you were. So it's definitely a game where if you touch a walkthrough, you risk ruining the entire game for yourself. So that was D, the game, which I got for $1.25. Not having the list of games that I purchased in front of me, I picked up D. I picked up a game called Smashing the Battle, which is a hack and slash. I only got to try that one time, but man, that was also super fun. I picked up a competitor to Anarchy Arcade, and I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. But it was a game that's developed primarily for VR, although VR is not required to run it. You put the headset on, and then you have a virtual arcade, and you can run like ROMs and stuff through an arcade that way. I wanted to try it. I wanted to see. I think Anarchy Arcade was such a wonderful piece of software in its heyday. The last time I tried it, the developer had completely rewritten the code for the engine. Not the engine, but yeah, he had completely rewritten the code. It's a source engine game, so I don't want to use the word engine, but he had completely rewritten the source code for the game, and this new version was not good. I could not do the things that I liked to do, like spawn arcade cabinets and walk around. But I liked that original game because it was a source engine game, and it took advantage of importing maps from other source engine games. So you could really tap into, you could tap into the fact that it was a source engine game. You could load Counter-Strike source maps, Counter-Strike Global Offensive maps or whatever, and lay out arcade machines in them, and hang out in DE Dust 2 and play, Space Invaders on a machine located in Long A, which I don't know, I found it was neat. So this one I haven't tried yet, but I'm imagining, my hypothesis is that the functionality is going to go down, or at least when compared to Anarchy Arcade in its heyday, because I don't think it's source engine, but I'm hoping the stability will go up, because that was one thing Anarchy Arcade was severely lacking, was stability. There were more than one patch through the lifespan of Anarchy Arcade that wiped out my arcades effectively, and I had some that I put in quite a few hours in. I don't think I passed the 100-hour mark in Anarchy Arcade, but I came close.
I certainly came close. I know I reached a part. Anarchy Arcade was one of the things that got me to go back to Windows, because it was not available in Linux at all. And it was definitely a game I remember playing on my older computer that couldn't quite run it. But have you ever been in that situation where you're playing a game and your computer can't really run it effectively, but you just stick with it anyway and just deal with it? I guess that's kind of the situation I'm putting myself in with the new Doom. But that's the way I was with Anarchy Arcade on my old computer. You're supposed to be able to just pick out any Steam game or freeware game or GOG game or whatever that you have linked up and just play it and go. But the loading times were so atrocious on my old computer that it was really not an effective use of time. But I played it anyway because I loved it. I thought it was great. So high hopes for this new title. What else? Man, I picked up... This is not the most I've ever picked up in a sale. I don't know the year, but it was one of the Thanksgiving sales. The Thanksgiving sale where I cleaned out the rest of the first-person shooters I didn't have. There was one, I think it was 2014, where I got Hexen 1 and 2, and I got Heretic. Heretic, and Nom, and a couple others. That one, I picked up 25 games in that sale. I think I'm up to 20 in this one. Another one that I got was Disgaea 2. I'm looking forward to that. Get my strategy RPG on. And then we come to, setting aside the Steam sales for a minute, I wanted to come to my secondary computer again. Now, my secondary computer has been what has given me some primary reason to discuss Linux again. And this is the problem I ran into. So the internet has been dropping. I would connect, and I would drop, and I would connect, and I would drop. All the while, it would always read that the network was there. Internet connectivity would drop. Now, through my reading, I discovered that the particular OS I was using at that time, Linux Mint, did not have control over it was using a generic driver, so it didn't have proper control over power, how much power was being allotted to the device, so it was underpowered. I replaced Linux Mint entirely with LMLS, which was okay for a little while, but only because I was playing in very short bursts. And then LMLS started doing the same thing, which is a shame because I really like that operating system. I got attached to, I talked about it on the air. I was very skeptical when I first installed it because it was not what I was expecting to install. It's Arch-based, it's very Linuxy. It's not created to be one of those let's wean you off of Windows type operating systems. This is pretty hardcore, but I grew to like it very, very quickly. I really did. Just the fact that it was super, super light. Another thing I enjoyed, which is, I guess it's a stupid thing to like in a Linux operating system, but it was so light, but they wanted to fill out their ISO size, so it came packaged with a lot of the stuff I would have gone out and picked up. It had Audacity installed in it already. It had LibreOffice installed in it already, which doesn't sound like much, but when you have internet connectivity issues, it does. So, so there was that. So I'm left in this position where I have I have a wireless card that just doesn't seem to work with Linux. It doesn't. So I could pay $20 and get a new wireless card. Or I could get another operating system, which I think is the boat I'm in. I think I'm getting ready to ditch Linux on my secondary machine. I still dual boot Mint on my main rig. Yeah, but I reached a point where what I want to do is play games on this computer and then run the occasional movie for my wife and I. But primarily I want to play games. Going with Linux already I'm dealing with issues with my collection. like severe limitations of what I can and can't play. I was playing a lot of Cities Skylines on that computer, which is a good game and Linux compatible. But there's certain things that just don't jive. Like there's no Street Fighter V isn't available on Linux. I have no decent racing game to play on Linux. And these were, racing and fighting. They're both big phases I went through, in video games. So Linux didn't support either one of those. The only decent fighting game I think that's available on Linux at all is Skullgirls, which is a good game and does run well on Linux. So there's that. So I just decided, look, I'm going to move to Windows, but I'm going to buy a new hard drive because I'm dealing with a used hard drive right now, and I don't want to risk installing an OEM key Windows license on an old hard drive because, I'm going to use the hard drive, but I don't want that to hold the OS. Let's get something new in. I'll run them, it'll be a 2 hard drive system. Pay some money for an OEM key, install Windows on the new hard drive, and then I'll be up and away. A little extra hard drive space, a little extra compatibility, in exchange for an enormous boot time. Windows 7's boot time is just absolutely atrocious. Ooh, it's the worst. I briefly considered getting Windows 8 just because I could install it for $5 while I waited for components to show up in the mail. But I don't know. I'm not sure what type of Windows I'm going to go with. I'm probably just going to settle down with 7 again. It runs the most games. It's what I like. But I had seriously given thought to trying Windows 10, which is a weird moment for me because one of the reasons I embraced Linux so hard was just the idea that it got me out of having to do Windows 10. Windows 10 was something that was forced on consumers. Nobody wanted that to happen. We needed a successor to Windows 8, but all the Windows 7 users that saw that pop up, nobody wanted that. Who wanted Windows 10? The people who adopted it and ran with it did so because they felt they had no choice. The only moment I was looking at operating systems, thinking that there might be any advantage to this is when you look at what RAM these operating systems can handle. I'm pretty sure Windows 7, at least Windows 7 Home Premium, can only handle 16 gigabytes of RAM or something like that. So there's a cap to how much I could expand my system given Windows 7. Not really a huge concern, but something to know, I guess. That ceiling is way higher. Even on Windows 8, it's way higher. So I'm looking at this old... not old. Why do I feel like it's old, though, because of the problems I'm having from it. But I'm looking at this new computer, the secondary computer I built, and I'm just thinking, how can I make this useful? And it seems like the best solution is to ditch Linux at this point, which is a weird situation I never thought I'd find myself in. Because I could pay a little less and just get a new wireless card and then go back to Linux. But I feel like if I'm already buying components, I might as well just open up my entire Steam library. I think Linux's day as a real viable option for gaming is coming very soon. I don't think it's really here yet. I think if you're a Linux user and you want to use Linux for other reasons, there are plenty of games for you to play. I learned an awful lot just over the past year. Things I wouldn't have seen just clicking around through Steam. For example, even though Quake and Morrowind don't have native Linux versions, they do have Linux source ports, so they can be hooked up and played without having to deal with wine or something like that.
And I think wine was hilarious. Something I heard a lot when talking about Linux and gaming on it is, well, just get wine. Wine is a compatibility layer that'll allow you to play Windows programs, and that'll open all kinds of doors. I've never dealt with a more cumbersome program, a more limiting program, I think, in all of my days in modern computing. Wine effectively takes... Here's one thing I'll say about running wine. All right, when you run wine and you see Steam as it exists in wine, it can't connect to any of the community aspects of Steam, nor can it really read the store. So you see Steam really for what it is. It looks like a jail. A bunch of empty gray windows you can sort through, and a big list of programs that, you know, you can spin the wheel and maybe they'll work and maybe they won't. That's what the Steam wine experience is like. And I think that is one of the primary reasons I'm not bothering to change out my wireless card and go back to Linux. That's about it, as far as that's concerned. I'm headed to work on Monday morning. Much rather be staying at home playing all my new games, but that's life. One thing I'd like to see happen with Steam is this. We see all kinds of mobile games ported to Steam, right? Mobile games that get ported to the PC. And you can clearly see in a lot of cases what's a mobile game and what isn't. Wouldn't it be cool if we could download those games onto our phones and actually play the mobile versions from Steam? I think that would be pretty sweet. The Steam mobile app, I feel like, has a lot of untapped potential. I feel like the interface is cumbersome. It is useful, right? I use the Steam app on my phone, but screens on phones have gotten a lot bigger in the last few years. And I can't imagine using this app prior to that at all. I don't know. Steam app needs work. There's a lot of apps out there that need work. What are you going to do? I guess that about wraps it up for me. As soon as I can find a place to turn the recorder off safely, I'm going to shoot it back to Panzer Studios. Last week was a very long episode. I think the longest regular season episode of Tiger Claw Radio was just over the 1.5 hour mark. I can't remember the number, but it was 1 hour and 33 minutes, I think. So what I think I'm going to do is I might try and break that record the day before I go on vacation. The last episode that comes out before I go on vacation, I'll try and break that record. And then the following 2 weeks, we'll catch up with the 12-sided podcast. I'll play those. And then when I return, I'll have probably a return from vacation special. I'll probably be recording on my phone. A little bit here, a little bit there. So I should be able to just stitch it all together and have a return special. And then after that, we'll do episode 3 and 4 of the 12-sided podcast and put that old ship to bed. All right, guys. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Let's shoot it back to Panzer Studios.
Tiger Claw Radio episode 191. Let's listen to some Starship Amazing. This is from Scoops the Robot. listening to Tiger Club Radio. This is a time I want to take just a little bit to set aside to thank the patrons. Tiger Club Radio does have a Patreon, and these guys are keeping me coming back week after week, making sure there's an episode available every Monday for you guys for free. Now, if you want to become one of the patrons, I'm giving them advance access. They get the episodes Friday night. Friday night when I produce the MP3, it goes right onto Patreon. They get the early access, and then Monday morning it goes up for everybody else. In addition to that, I like to recognize the gentlemen specifically: Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and 6 Health of Fury. Those are the Elite 6. Okay, so I did a double van cast this week, thank goodness, so I can fill the week. Let's go right back to the van cast. We're gonna fast forward. The first bit was recorded on Monday, and now we're gonna go to Thursday after work. No, Thursday before work. I don't know. We're going to Thursday. Let's go to Thursday, everybody. You're listening to Tiger Club Radio.
Thursday morning. Okay, guys. So I requested my first Steam refund ever today. And the game was called New Retro Arcade. Oh yeah, New Retro Arcade, man. Load it up and you can walk around an arcade and you can play ROMs in an arcade, man. I loaded this game up and I knew there was trouble when it put me in a room that was supposed to be like a menu because it was designed for VR. And there wasn't much to look at. It was just an empty floor, a horizon, and a single arcade machine. And my computer was chugging. Couldn't quite handle it. I could dumb the graphics down and make it run, but there's still a little bit of input lag. It wasn't quite there. But that wasn't the reason why I requested the refund. It just, I was comparing it to Anarchy Arcade in my head when I bought it. Anarchy Arcade, of course, you can load Steam games, you can load localized PC games, you can load ROMs, emulators, all of those things. I was thinking it was going to be the next Anarchy Arcade. Now, it does have options for you to load ROMs, but that's really it. ROMs and ROMs only. Not that I have anything against ROMs. ROMs are a lot of fun. But it just it didn't run well enough, and it didn't have enough scope as an application. So it was like $11. So I requested a refund. I'm gonna use the money to probably get H1Z1 King of the Kill. A little bit less expensive than PlayerUnknown, but supposedly works a little bit better on lower end machines. A little bit of open world combat, which should be fun. A game that, for better or worse, I will play. I'll rather software that I will successfully load and run. Whatever happens, at least I'll run the program. So this was the first refund I ever requested. However, prior to the refund program, there was a game that I wrote out to Steam and asked them to remove from my library. I wish I could remember what it was called. It was like 7 Ancients and Begat. I don't know, something weird like that. Terrible game. I got it for a review code, and I loaded it up. And the second time I loaded it up, I got a message saying, "Your preview time has expired." Hey man, your preview time has expired. This game is expired. You have an expired game in your library, bro. So I was like, yeah. Alright, Steam. You can pull that out. I think what had happened was, because it was an early copy, there was a playtime that was designated prior to release, and then once the playtime ran out, you had to wait for release to run the program again. But the game was bad, and I felt like the developers were messing with me. And if there's one thing I don't need an expired game, bro. Because my playtime had expired. My patience with that game had expired, bro. Alright. I'm fired up this morning. I'm going to McDonald's. That was good. Good indeed. Alright, I'm rolling towards the highway. I got a little ways yet. So that was one that didn't work out. But there was most of the games that I've tried, that I've picked up for the summer sale, have been really good. One that I particularly enjoyed was the .emu pack for their release of the Double Dragon trilogy. The first 3 arcade games released for Steam, GOG.com, and the Ouya as well. Back in those days. I dug into that last night, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I played through most of the original Double Dragon on a Raspberry Pi at MagFest last year, but I only made it about 3/4 of the way through. I sat down to play the first Double Dragon, and they picked up the speed a little bit. When I played it on the Raspberry Pi, I felt like it was dragging, but I didn't think much of it because some of these old arcade games, the pace wasn't the fastest. So I don't know if perhaps my ROM was slowed down on the Raspberry Pi, and this is just running at normal speed, or if they kicked it up a notch to make it flow a little bit better. But it did. It played very well, despite reports otherwise. There are a lot of negative reports in the Steam reviews about the Double Dragon trilogy not running very well. There's a lot of reports of flickering, that sort of thing. I didn't get any of that. I had a nice clean experience. I played all the way through Double Dragon 1 and most of the way through Double Dragon 2. I used the elbow cheese move, most of the way, but that doesn't matter. I was just playing to have fun. Just kicking around a little bit and just having a good time. One thing I noticed was that it was a lot easier than I remember. I was like, yeah, this is actually really doable. I don't remember it being this easy. I remember it being a lot harder. And I played all the way through the first Double Dragon thinking that. And then when I got back to the menu, I realized it was on easy mode. There's easy arcade, original mode, which is how it was in the arcade, probably how I remember it. And then there was an extreme or expert mode. So yeah, I played through on easy. I played through Double Dragon 2 on easy and still lost. Although to be fair, I was close to the end and I was making a lot of dumb mistakes because I thought I had unlimited continues. But man, I had a good time. I didn't realize how messed up some of those games were. Specifically Double Dragon 2. Double Dragon 2 opens with the girlfriend getting gunned down, and there's some pretty heavy-duty 80s action movie themes in that game, which I thought were really rad. Really rad. Like, I want to go back and play through that game a little bit more carefully so I can see the end. I enjoyed the end of the first game when I got to the final boss. There was this guy, the big guy, and then he had like 3 or 4 henchmen. And I managed to defeat the big guy first, and then the henchmen just kind of walked off the screen. And that was it. I won. And I'm like, wow, we're out of here. So that was cool. And that was I picked that up for I think $2.50 from the Steam summer sales. So these have been going very, very well. I'm looking forward to getting H1Z1, King of the Kill, with my refund from that really terrible arcade thing. Yeah. It's a shame because the idea of a 3D space where you can launch programs is something I really, think has a lot of potential. I would have paid money for Anarchy Arcade when it came out. It just so happened to be free. When I saw the trailer, I was doped about that game. And then it became freeware. I mean, I want to see it done right. That's what I'm saying. Anarchy Arcade was the first real implementation of that kind of thing, you know, on Steam, where you could just pull Steam games right from your library. And I feel like, especially with the new update, they really just made it really terrible. There was an update which returned like all of your Half-Life weapons now appear in Anarchy Arcade. Like you could pull out the stun baton and like the Glock and things like that. It just seems really out of place. I like the way it used to work. It used to load faster. It used to work better. It used to have some kind of multiplayer, although it doesn't now. I'm just not happy with it. I hope somebody does it better. That's why I tried this new retro arcade. And that is the name of it. That's a terrible name for a software package. New retro arcade, bro. Load it up today. $13 on sale, bro. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully I'll have some more time on my hands. I can go back and play the new Doom game. That should be fun. What else did I try? I tried Tron 2.0. Woo! That's a good game. That's another one I'm real excited to play. Tron 2.0. With the voice talents of Rebecca Romaine Stamos and Bruce Boxleiter, however you say his name, from the original Tron movies, from Tron and Tron Legacy. His voice is clearly recognizable. I played through the tutorial mode and just a little bit of the action of Tron 2.0, and I gotta say, super excited to get back and play that. Well, alright, I'm getting ready to get on the highway, and it looks really busy, so I don't really want to do too much more van casting. I will see you guys back in Panzer Studios.
Alright, back in the studio again. Okay. I just might be able to make this a real episode. So, let's do the fail bag, guys. Unfortunately, I don't have time to scour all of the various sources. So let me know if you hit me up on some place other than YouTube. Let me know, and I'll go back and read it next week the best I can. For now, I've got a good amount of comments from the usual suspects, starting with Death Adder, who writes, yeah, the 360 was pretty dank compared to the PS3. A lot of its policies seem to have been thought up by a less smart Hitler. The Xbox One doesn't have the Netflix paywall anymore, which is great news for me and the 3 other guys that bought one. I got a couple of controller-friendly Steam sale games and plugged an HDMI cable into my TV to play them. It was cool. If I'm ever to get into Steam, I think I'm just going to have to stick to the controller-friendly games. Although I did buy Honey Pop, if you know what I'm saying over here. I mean, hey, it's just us guys. You know what I'm talking about, Tiger Man. Oh, yeah. 'Cause the boobies. Let's just say I have an extensive Sears catalog, if you know what I'm saying. Also, I picked up Harvester on Steam because it looks charming as F. Question of the week. You excited for Sonic Mania at all? Will you be purchasing it at full price? Swingle replies, I'm sorry for giving you a taste of the cocaine known as Steam. Death Adder replies to that reply, I could not have done it without you, Mr. Swingle. I could totally see the 16-bit controller-heavy games and the contention of the TV being a great option when my Xbox overheats next week. However, I'm trying to keep myself from being overwhelmed by a zillion game options at once, and part of me wants to go back to buying one plastic Xbox game at a time. Also, CF, I threw a stone with a letter attached to the Terror Dome. Jerry came outside and broke my legs and arms and says to contact him on Skype about the Monster Cast. He also drew a wiener on my forehead. I hadn't read that one before. That's good. Alright. Couple of things to unpack here. Steam. You're playing Steam with a controller. Good choice, my friend. There are lots of stuff there for you to enjoy. As a matter of fact, I'm going to load up Steam right now. I have a category that's listed needs controller. These are the games that I prefer to play with a controller. It's not entirely filled out, but I'm hoping that as soon as Steam loads, I can give you a couple of suggestions based on that. How does big picture work for you? You put it in big picture and you can navigate everything. Supposedly you can even type, though I haven't bothered to try that. There's no real need for me to. So alright, so I'm in. So if I go to games and I drop down and I go to needs controller, okay, there's a lot of stuff here. Also, I'm pretty comfortable using Joy to key, so for me personally, it doesn't really matter if it has native controller support. A couple of games I can spot you might enjoy right off the bat. I have the original Dark Souls, which I think is pretty cheap now in the summer sale. Excuse me. Cave Story is a great game. Gotta get yourself a copy of Cave Story. Spelunky is also a great controller game, which had native controller support. Just to name a few. I don't think it'll be helpful to to just read off every game in this category, but I would recommend those. Also, there's a lot of good fighting games that have native controller support as well. So I think you'll find some good stuff there. Thanks for writing in, and I will hit Jerry up, and we'll see if we can get something going for the Monster Cast. All right, Gaming Beast 82 writes, I have posted comments on YouTube, TNR, and the TCR website. I commented on 188, and I'll post a short one on 189. Okay, great. So we'll go back and read those when we're done. I myself have not gotten anything from the Steam sale yet, nor have I got anything from the GOG sale, or other than Fantasy General, since I'm low on money at the moment. Honestly, nothing really tickled my fancy, but either. But I agree the new Doom looks cool, and I would like to get it for sure. Question of the now. Is there a genre of games that you just can't play anymore, either for time or loss of interest, that you used to like a lot back in the day? Really good question, and let's make that the question of the week for all of you guys, because I know we're an older bunch of guys, and that is a really good question. I haven't played a JRPG in a very, very long time. Most of the games that are really time intensive, I have a difficult time playing now. I had a very strong interest in 4X space games in about 2012, and I think all that's left from that is I like the original Master of Orion. There's a couple of games Space Empires 4, I have an affection for that game. Endless Space is a pretty cool game, just a really terrible UI. But yeah. 4X games. 4X space games. Love them to death. I just can't do it. Can't do the time investment. So those are just to name a few. But what about you, man? I don't think you listed. You asked the question, but you did not raise the answer. Well, let's see what you got, man. What's something you can't play anymore? Alex Swingle writes in, at minute 13, I like how you spent more time editing a bleep sound instead of deleting the audio entirely. At minute summer sale, according to the Steam database, the majority of Steam games were not even their cheapest discount, except for all of the Valve games. That and Bethesda. Even then, just their flagship games were cheaper than the normal sales. I think content publishers became too aware that many people were blindly thinking that summer sale or winter sale equals good deal. About half the games you listed as getting were much cheaper during the other sales, as an example. One more thing I experienced, the magic of getting a game I cared about that wasn't super cheap. Still, I haven't broke the $15 mark since Grim Dawn, which I sort of regret due to it having a terrible balance. Though I bought the remaining Hyperdimension Neptunia games on GOG, I have episode 1 on Steam, and fell in love with a Nintendo console called... Excuse me, I want to make sure I read this right. And fell in love when the Nintendo console called the Microsoft console Thunder Memories with glorious voice acting. Whew, that was a mouthful to read. I think I made it through okay, though. The 4 main characters in the game are named after the secret codename projects of the unknown big boy console sellers. At minute 58, I don't know about you, but I only care about permission when people are going to be whiny babies about it or when it revolves around money. At 61, hashtag triggered. I agree that help vampires don't exist because vampires aren't real. Wink, wink. Also, I have never heard a quiet 7200 RPM hard drive. At podcast 189. Considering YouTube was down for you to find the comments, do you plan on changing your search everywhere to find comments policy? And then he writes, and the stickers were beyond lame. It's customizable backgrounds with 100% advertisement laden stickers. Do I look forward to 600 games I'll be getting from gemming the earnable trading cards? That's about it. Yeah, the stickers were lame. I tried to like them, but nah, they're lame. What else did you talk about? Yeah, I just beeped it because I wanted to keep that moment. That was a moment where like I had a real problem while I was driving, and I liked it because it put I don't know. Okay, let me explain this to you. This is something that I like that doesn't happen very often. When you listen to the show and you hear something that's happening, I think there's value in that. That's something that was happening. Not me telling you about something per se, although that was, ultimately something happened in that moment. Which is why I didn't want to delete the audio. Which is silly, I guess, but I don't know. I liked that bit. I didn't want to lose it. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a story. It was just a little slice of humanity, which I think is important, especially in this show. As far as games being cheap, you're right. I read this comment earlier, and I went back and I looked at the Steam sales. And, I mean, it's been a good sale for me. I found a lot of good things to get. But the gets that I'm most excited about were DLC, to be honest with you. I got some really good stuff for The Sims 3, which I still enjoy The Sims 3. This morning I picked up some some tables for Pinball FX2. The Plants vs. Zombies table went down to 50 cents. I got that. And there were a couple others. I love Pinball FX2. I haven't played it in a long time. But to check on what you were saying, I went to my wish list, which I'm going to go to right now. You can see it in the percentages if you scroll a wish list. The vast majority of these are 20 and 50%, mostly 20 to 50. In the olden days, it was 80 or bust, 70, 80, even 90 in some cases. Also, can somebody tell me why Alone in the Dark 1, 2, and 3, the MS-DOS games, are being sold separately at $15 a piece? Whose idea was that dumb crap? Somebody needs to be fired over that, because that's ridiculous. I'm looking at it right now. Alone in the Dark 1, just 1, is on sale. It's $14.99 regular price, on sale for $5.09. Just 1. That's terrible. Somebody needs to fix that, like, right now. There were some good deals, though, man. You just had to look for them. Tropico 5, 75% off. The Independence War 1 and 2 are both 75% off. This War of Mine is 80% off. That went down to $3.99. I kind of want to get that. I haven't yet, though. There were a few. I agree, but here's the thing, Alex. You could say that this is the worst Steam sale ever because they get a little bit worse every year. You could say that. And you know what? You'd probably be right. They give you less cards for free, the gimmick is terrible, and the actual sales are less. However, there are good games to buy. There's more games out now than there were the last time around. There are good things about the sale to find if you choose to spin it that way. That's how I would say it. And I have chosen to make it a good sale for myself. At least they had the event and they made some discounts. So there's at least that. I got Tron 2.0 and I played the introduction and a little bit of the first part of it. And I was like, man, this is really cool. Watching the intro, especially with Bruce Boxleader. I want to go back in and play that again. Rebecca Romaine Stamos is also in that for some reason. I think we talked about this earlier, but oh well. Gotta do what you gotta do. Let's see. Let me jump back to my summer sale. So they executed the refund for me, which was amazing. They did it. They gave me the fundage back. It took a little bit to clear, but not too long. And now it's gone from my library. When I looked at this earlier this morning, the game was still there, but when you moused over it, it said purchase instead of play. Now it's gone altogether. All right. Anything else I didn't address in that email? I think that's about it. Oh, comments. I tried to accept comments in as many places as possible to make it easy for people to make them, because I wanted to actually get comments. That's the reason I've been doing it that way. If I had just a little bit more time during the week, I could make it so that Friday night I could devote to answering the comment. That's the way it's supposed to be, dude. I have my schedule set up so that when I sit down on Friday to finish the show, the entire evening is just dedicated to Let's Answer the Comments. That's why. So I can spend time doing the research, rounding up all the comments that I know of, and then reading them off, and there you go. That's the whole evening. But then there's nights like these where my kids just will not go to bed. And thank goodness I was really rambly on the Vancast, so we were able to make it to an hour. I'm not even going to be able to play the ending bit. I gotta wrap the show, guys. That's it. I'm out of time. Look, we made it, and this is proof that you can make it. So don't give up. Whatever you're doing, however you got here out there in podcast land, keep on doing what you do. Make it a good week, and I'll see you next Monday.